Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all doing fantastic. So on last week's Wellness Wednesday, we talked about some dynamic imaging. And we had a bunch of questions come in on this. So I'm doing this kind of as a follow-up to our Wellness Wednesday. And heck, maybe we'll even make it its own little series here and do an extra video a week. But I called this one Trauma Tuesday. So a number of people sent messages about when would we find it necessary to take dynamic imaging, meaning most of the time flexion and extension radiographs on people. So I have some handy dandy bones here, and I'm going to kind of walk us through this. So the two big things that we look at in the low back are the posterior longitudinal ligament, which would run down the back of the vertebrae here, and the anterior longitudinal ligament, which would run down the front of the spine. So this person would be facing this way. So the big things that we look at in imaging is that would indicate damage to the posterior longitudinal ligament. Is there posterior widening of that disc space? So this is where your disc would be, and that's a way over exaggeration, but is there wedging of that? That's a clue that you should probably take dynamic films. Also, another indicator of posterior longitudinal ligament damage is called anterolisthesis, or this bone has slid forward on top of the one below. Very, very helpful tools when dynamic imaging comes into question. Now, on the other side of that, for the anterior longitudinal ligament that would run down the front of the spine here, we look at, do we have bones set backwards? That's called a retrolisthesis. And then do we have, see if I can imitate it here, widening, kind of make that little Pac-Man symbol. These low back bones don't like to behave like that. But do we have widening of this disc space in the front? Those would be great indicators on a regular side view that dynamic imaging could be necessary in the patient. Now, when it comes to the analysis, specifically talking about the DXD software, points are placed at the four corners of the vertebral body. So down here, out here, up here, and then we can get this plastic nerve out of the way back here, and then right in here. And that allows us the fixed points to analyze that in neutral, bending forward, and bending backwards, so we get a comparative analysis of what that bone is doing in each one of those positions. And then all the disc spaces are measured, and the front or back movement is measured and calculated as well, both in millimeters and based on percentage of movement. Super, super cool. So if you gals and guys have any questions or comments out there, please drop them in the video below, and I will answer them as soon as I see them. Have a great day. See ya.